Alright, here we go. I got one of the Russian spies. Both of them are guys. One of them worked at Microsoft. The other actually graduated from Harvard, from the Kennedy School of Government. According to the New York Times, he developed this software program called Future Map, where you put in you put in the data into the information system, and it made predictions based on that data. And obviously, he wanted to install this software program. He developed a software program called Future Map, um, which, yeah, you just plug in data about like election results, trends, and the economy, trends in medicine, energy, trends in foreign affairs, and you plug in all that data, and then it would make predictions based on that data. Obviously, he wanted to install this onto major corporations. He would install this software into major corporations' hardware, so that he could get that data and then send it back to Russia. So this guy was pretty much, he was a major player. He was an up and comer in in, in multinational corporations. He claimed to work for General Electric, Motorola, and Microsoft. On his LinkedIn page, um, let's see, he was pitching a software program, and he was doing corporate espionage for the Russian government, and he was doing a really amazing job out of it. He was pitching it to major firms, and he made friends at Harvard. No one knew he was a spy. No one had a clue. Hetfield is actually Canadian, um, so he didn't look Russian. He didn't sound Russian. He didn't have a Russian accent. The other Russians in this spy scandal back in 2010, a lot of them were women. One of them was trying to infiltrate the Obama administration, through through high scale high scale prostitution ring. You know, others were sleeping with major business, trying to sleep with big corporate executives, the biggest players in the industries, and yada yada yada. I could write. This is something I'd love to learn more about. I want to make a documentary about this. I'm sure there's got to be a documentary about this, right? Someone's got to be working on a documentary about this. But really, I'd love to do a research paper about this at some point if I was, because you can learn so much about foreign policy that it's not the main, outside of the mainstream, but what's going on? Like, what is the degree of corporate espionage? What's the degree of, what really is the nature of the international relations between the United States and the Russian government? The United States government, the Russian government, Russian major Russian corporations, major U.S. corporations. How did they all interrelate? You can learn a lot through this case study and seeing how it all played out, reading mainstream news articles, then going on to like a research database by EBSCOhost, and read articles written in journals regarding international relations. Look what top PhDs in international relations have had to say. I'm sure a lot of them have studied this subject in depth and come to and written articles about it in peer-reviewed journals, scholarly journals. I'm sure it's been written about in corporate trade journals. I know it's been written about in corporate trade journals, obviously. I could just spend like an entire year just writing about this. I could write a book. You could write a book about this subject. It would be a bestseller. Make a documentary about this. I'd rather write a book about it, but I don't have the time. If it was the summer, and it just happened, I would probably spend at least 30 or 40 hours doing research about it. Then I'd write a paper about it. And then I'd make a few videos about it. after I did the research and looked at all the information. This is something. If you have inquiry-based learning, though, you could, and you're having international relations course, and this occurs, you can make the question. You can allow the students, okay, I want you to do research on this topic and write a research paper on this topic. Um, you know, come up with your own research question regarding this spying and the deportation of these spies. And I want you to then do research and answer that question, and then give me a research paper on the subject. And you have a month to do it. So the person could put in like 8 hours per week for the class in total. They get about 30 hours of research, 20 or 30 hours of research in, if they put in the minimum amount expected of them. And the rest of the time writing about it. Then they could discuss and debate the subject with others, and they would really have an in-depth understanding and up-to-date understanding of international relations by studying a case study. Instead of having a textbook on the subject, you get one super biased viewpoint instead of actually conducting real research yourself and coming to independent conclusions, coming to rational conclusions, and having actually thought about the subject, use thinking skills to try to analyze, figure, and be like, what is really going on here? Like, what Russian spies are trying to they're trying to infiltrate corporations. Future map, what is this? What's going on here? Future map, designing a software program to try to predict future. Google already has that. Google already has they use all the data that's entered into Google Maps and all their other into searches and all that to predict trends. Like, if people are searching a subject a lot, obviously it's becoming more popular. People are becoming more interested in. They can use that trend to predict the future trends in terms of they also have data, what people are buying, and they create software programs that essentially can predict the future. They can predict movements. The aggregate all the they compile all the data on like Google Maps. Like where they can predict like changes in population, through data on health and data from the CDC. The military's had this for 20, 30 years. Obviously, it's relevant to international relations and to dominance as a world power. It's only getting more sophisticated. So to a degree, they can predict future events with a great deal of accuracy. I haven't really studied the subject in much depth. I should make a video after I study that. It's interesting stuff. But see, I try to make a video about microeconomics, and then I just get off into everything. I just talk and talk and talk and talk, getting off into completely unrelated subjects. Whatever draws my interest. I'm tired now. Anyway, he talks about the 1983 scandal between Robert Kandel and Braniff and Howard Putnam of Braniff Airways. President of American Airlines and the president of Braniff Airways. Crandall of American Airlines called Putnam and told him, hey, well, this is what he said: I think it's dumb as hell to sit here and pound the shit out of each other. Neither one of us are making a fucking dime. Do you have and Putnam is like, do you have a suggestion for me? So the American Airlines executive was like, yes, I have a suggestion for you. Raise your fucking fares by 20%. I'll raise mine the next morning. Putnam, Robert Wheat, Crandall says, well, you'll make more money and I will too. Putnam replies, you can't talk about pricing. Crandall then replies, oh fuck, Howard, we can talk about any fucking thing we want to talk about. So obviously the guy was flipping the F out. And anyway, the executive of Braniff Airways called the U.S. Justice Department. They called New York Times, ratted the guy out, and 2 years later, Crandall and the Justice Department reached a settlement in which Crandall agreed to various restrictions on his business activities, including his contacts with officials at other airlines. Did he pay a fine? Doesn't say. I don't know. Controversial policies that people wonder whether they should fall under antitrust policies, resale price maintenance, predatory pricing, which really doesn't work. It's never really a profitable strategy because your competitors are going to think at the margin they're just going to, if you do predatory pricing, they can do what is called, they're not going to exit the market but do a shutdown, and or they'll just adjust by decreasing their amount of output and just whatever. If they have economies of scale you won't, they can just do a shutdown or just reduce it gradually, then do a shutdown, and then you're going to lose a bunch of prices because you're selling below the cost of producing it, so you're making negative profits. So they're just going to, so your competitor is going to say, oh, they're trying to get us out of the market. They'll just bleed you dry. And let's see, in this example, let's see. So there are two airlines, Coyote Air and Roadrunner Air. Let's say Coyote Airline owns 80% of the market, and they slash their fares. If he wants to start selling cheap tickets at a loss, he better be ready to fly more planes because low fares will attract more customers. The Roadrunner Airlines, meanwhile, can respond to Coyote's predatory move by cutting back on flights. So yeah, so if Coyote Airlines lowers the price of it, you can have more customers because people that couldn't afford to fly before will be able to afford to fly. So you're just, you're not stealing our market share. You're actually increasing the size of the market because more people are going to fly. And then, since it's a monopolistic market, through differentiation, Roadrunner Airways can still have their price above that of Coyote Airways and still make a profit if they just differentiate it in some certain way. Because again, flight on an airplane is not just getting from A to B. It's getting from A to B in a certain way. Some people prefer more comfortable seats. Some people prefer certain types of rules in terms of, and some people prefer certain. Yeah, exactly. Some people prefer certain types of rules, and like the guy next to you can't have loud headphones on. At 8 o'clock at night, from like 8 till 6 in the morning. The lights are out on the plane, stuff like that. So, and people would be willing to spend $60 on the ticket if you differentiate it in a way that they like. Other people are gonna like, might want a flight where the lights are on during the night and has Wi-Fi, high-speed Wi-Fi on the plane, and they can stay up late, like watching, drinking coffee and doing whatever, or some people prefer a plane where there's no alcohol allowed because they've had too many drunk people, had too many bad experiences with drunk people. Other people would like a giant liquor cabinet full of different liquors and wines and beers. So you just differentiate your air flight, and yeah, the other person can do predatory pricing, but he's going to be bleeding profits. You can keep your prices the same they are, and as long as you differentiate in some way, you can cut down on flights a little bit. And even though you're charging a higher price, you're still, because your business is differentiated in some way from the other business because you offer a different type of experience on the plane. you're still going to have customers coming to you. You're also going to have customer loyalty, and they'll be like, you can tell your customers, Coyote Airlines is trying to run us out of business with predatory pricing, and once they run us out of business, they're going to try to price gouge everybody, and then that would rally people up, and they'd be like, even people that were going with Coyote Airlines would go with the Roadrunner Airlines because they they don't, no one likes to get ripped off, and they don't like, they love a good underdog story. So it could just blow right up in your face. Tying is controversial. Tying two products together. Tying was controversial with the Microsoft antitrust case in 1998 because Microsoft packaged their Internet Explorer, their software programs, your internet browser with their operating system. They tied the two together. They had Internet Explorer already on. The operating system integrated into it, and then the U.S. Justice Department said that was anti-competitive. You had two prominent economists testifying for the government. Was a prominent economist from MIT. MIT professor Franklin Fisher. Testifying from Microsoft was an equally prominent economist, MIT professor Richard Schmalansky. Schmalanensea. Just destroy that name. I just cannot pronounce that name. You probably looked that up. There's probably a whole documentary about that. Now I know how to pronounce the guy's name. That'd be good. I'll just summarize this chapter. Oligopolists maximize their total profits by forming a cartel and acting like a monopolist. Yet, if oligopolists make decisions about production levels individually, the result is a greater quantity and a lower price than under the monopoly outcome. The larger the number of firms in the oligopoly, the closer the quantity and price will be to levels that would prevail under a competitive market, he says under perfect competition. BS. Either under perfect competition or a monopolistically competitive market. The prisoner's dilemma shows that self-interest can prevent people from obtaining cooperation, even when cooperation is in their mutual interest. He says that, the logic of the prisoner's dilemma applies in many situations, including arms races, common resource problems, and oligopolies. Not so much, the prisoner's dilemma tournament does, which is why price fixing is so predominant among oligopolies. Arms races. During an arms race, the prisoner's dilemma works out very well. You know, in both companies' interests and their economic interests to stop the arms race, because you're diverting resources and skills away from producing goods and services that people would use and enjoy to producing bombs and expensive aircraft and nuclear weapons and so on and so forth. So yeah, the more time and money you spend building bombs, the less time money you spend building houses and schools and hospitals and resorts and furniture and farms and so on and so forth. And computer software firms and different technology, building factories that produce consumer goods, industrial goods. Less time spent building consumer vehicles. Less human human resources, not human resources. Human capital. The more human capital you spend on warfare, the less human capital you're spending on domestic needs. Domestic welfare, economic production within the private sector. The larger the public sector, the smaller the private sector, because the public sector sucks blood out of the private sector. Sometimes it can have an ROI greater than the taxes it takes out. Usually it does not. Policymakers use the antitrust laws to prevent oligopolies from engaging in behavior that reduces competition. The application of these laws can be controversial because some behavior that can appear to reduce competition may in fact have legitimate business purposes, like tying, like predatory, well, not predatory pricing, and like tying and like resale price maintenance. And predatory pricing is not really a problem. It rarely, if ever, works. Some economists do argue that predatory pricing could be a problem, but really it's not. Any smart firm would just respond to predatory pricing, by letting that firm shoot themselves in the foot, because in order to conduct predatory pricing, you have to earn less profits than you're capable of earning, or even earn like negative profits. Again, I'm sure I'd like to watch a debate on that. Not enough debates available online on economic issues like this. And debate stirs inquiry, and through inquiry one arrives at the truth. What was that quote by Thomas Jefferson? Thomas Jefferson debate quote. Thomas Jefferson debate inquiry quote. Debate quote. Thomas Jefferson. There we go. Something about debate stirs inquiry, and debate truth. Thomas Jefferson. I know he said something about it. Reason and free inquiry, the only effectual agents against error. Here it is. Difference of opinion leads to inquiry, and inquiry to truth. Thomas Jefferson. Difference of opinion leads to inquiry, and inquiry to truth. Difference of opinion leads to inquiry, and inquiry to truth. Thomas Jefferson. That's a great quote to support inquiry-based learning. You also have the quote by John Stuart Mills. No wise man. Anyway, I'm tired. I'm too tired for this. I didn't get full night's sleep last night, but that'll be the end of this video. That was George Mankiew's chapter on oligopolies. My just having going off into a bunch of other subjects. Just to keep, just to tie everything I learned in with other things I've studied, and also just to discuss things I found interesting, and to explore them and discuss them.